The Great Hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with quiet conversation. Representatives from 847 different species filled the massive chamber. Some floated in water tanks, others hung from the ceiling on metal cables, and many sat in chairs designed for their unique bodies. The air smelled of different gases that each species needed to breathe. Ambassador Choi Min-ho walked slowly to the center platform. His black uniform was simple compared to the colorful robes and armor worn by other representatives. Behind him, Dr. Park Ji-won carried a small metal case. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood near the human section, watching everything with careful eyes. Honored council members, Choi Min-ho began, his voice clear and calm. Today, humanity presents our latest gifts to the galactic community. Dr. Park Ji-won opened the case and pulled out a small cube that glowed with soft blue light. This is a self-repairing station core, she explained. It can fix any damage to space stations automatically. No more need for dangerous repair missions. Murmurs filled the hall. Some sounded impressed, others worried. Speaker Veltar, a large creature that looked like a mix between a fish and an octopus, moved in his water tank. His voice came through speakers around the room. More human technology, Veltar said, his tone cold. Always more gadgets and machines from the youngest species in the council. Dr. Park Ji-won continued as if she had not heard him. We also have new quantum communication devices. Messages can now travel across the entire galaxy in minutes instead of months. She pulled out another device, this one shaped like a crystal. And finally, medical scanners that can detect diseases before they start. We have already tested them on 50 different species. The results show we can prevent many deaths. Captain Lee Dae-ho watched the faces in the crowd. He saw fear in some eyes, wonder in others. He had been a soldier for 30 years and knew how to read a room. Something bad was coming. General Thexmore, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, stood up from his seat. His species, the Rixians, had always been suspicious of humans. Speaker Veltar speaks truth, he said loudly. Humans have been in this council for only 60 years, yet they act like they own the galaxy. We share our knowledge freely, Choi Min-ho replied. We ask for nothing in return. That makes it worse, Thexmore shouted. You make other species dependent on your technology. Soon we cannot live without human machines. Is this not conquest? By another name? More voices joined the argument. Captain Lee Dae-ho touched a small device on his wrist. Back on human ships throughout the galaxy, other humans would see this signal. They would know the meeting was going badly. Speaker Veltar raised one of his tentacles for silence. General Thexmore raises important concerns. Perhaps it is time for the Council to consider new policies about human expansion. Dr. Park Ji-won looked at Choi Min-ho. They had prepared for this moment, but it still hurt to hear it happening. For weeks, their spies had reported secret meetings between various council members. The humans were becoming too powerful, they said. Too dangerous. I call for a vote on the containment doctrine, Veltar announced. A holographic document appeared in the air above the center platform. Captain Lee Dae-ho read it quickly. The words made his stomach feel sick. Humans would lose their right to vote in the council. They could not travel to certain parts of the galaxy. All human research would be watched and controlled by council inspectors. This is punishment for helping you, Dr. Park Ji-won said quietly. This is protection for everyone, Veltar replied. Humans are too young, too aggressive. You do not understand the careful balance we have built over thousands of years. The vote began. Species after species cast their decision. The humans watched their allies abandon them one by one. Fear was stronger than friendship, it seemed. Species that had been saved by human medicine voted against them. Worlds that depended on human technology turned their backs. When the counting finished, the result was clear. 523 species voted for the containment doctrine. Only 324 voted against it. Choi Min-ho stood silent for a long moment. The hall was quiet, except for the hum of life support systems. Finally, he spoke. The Human Federation respects the Council's decision, he said. We will comply fully with all requirements of the containment doctrine. He bowed politely to the assembly, then turned and walked toward the exit. Dr. Park Ji-won and Captain Lee Dae-ho followed him. Other human representatives joined them as they left the Great Hall. Outside, Captain Lee Dae-ho spoke quietly into his communicator. Silent Thunder is approved, he said. Begin the withdrawal. Across the galaxy, the message traveled instantly through secret human communication networks. On thousands of space stations, human workers stopped what they were doing and began packing. Human trade ships changed course and headed for the edges of Council space. Human colonies started shutting down their cities and loading everything onto massive transport vessels. The humans moved quickly but calmly. They had practiced this evacuation many times in secret. Every human in Council space knew exactly what to do and where to go. Within 72 hours, something strange began to happen. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Human ships were leaving, but they were not going to any known human worlds. Trade stations that humans had built were empty but undamaged. Human colonies showed no signs of where their people had gone. It was as if millions of humans had simply disappeared. On Nexus Prime, Speaker Veltar received the reports with satisfaction. Good, he said to his advisors. The humans understand their place now. The galaxy is safer without their chaos. But far away, in a place between dimensions that the Council did not know existed, Ambassador Choi Minho stood on the bridge of a massive human ship. Through the windows he could see dozens of human worlds that had been secretly built over the past century. Project Silent Thunder is complete, reported Commander Ryu Hyun-woo. All humans are safely relocated to dimensional space. Choi Minho nodded. Now we wait, he said. And when the real danger comes, we will be ready. The Council thought they had solved their human problem. They had no idea that the problem they should be worried about was still coming from the dark spaces between the stars. 3 months had passed since the humans disappeared. Speaker Veltar floated in his office tank reading reports from across the galaxy. The news made him happy. Trade was still flowing between worlds. The Council still made decisions. Everything seemed normal, sir, his assistant said through the waterproof communicator. You have a message from the Outer Rim trade station. Veltar opened the message and began reading. His happiness quickly turned to worry. The station was having problems with its life support systems. The automatic repair systems had stopped working. Several sections had lost power, and no one knew how to fix them. Contact the human engineers, Veltar said, then stopped himself. There were no human engineers anymore. They were all gone. Another message arrived, then another. All across the galaxy, space stations were breaking down. The self-repairing systems that humans had installed were failing, and no other species knew how to maintain them. Admiral Kreselin, the Council's top military officer, swam into Veltar's office. She was from an aquatic species like Veltar, but her body was covered in sharp scales that made her look dangerous. We have bigger problems, she said. The quantum communication network is developing dead zones. Messages from the Outer Rim are taking weeks to reach us instead of minutes. Veltar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Can our technicians fix it? We have been trying for 2 months, Kreselin replied. The human technology is too complex. Every time we try to repair one part, 3 other parts stop working. Meanwhile, in the medical district of Nexus Prime, Dr. Zarabnon was facing his own crisis. The Altarian species was known across the galaxy for their healing abilities, but even they could not solve the current problem. The human medical treatments are failing, Dr. Zarabnon told his staff. The medicines that cured the Vegan plague last year are no longer working. The synthesis machines that make the medicine have broken down and we cannot build new ones. His assistant, a young Altarian named Heska, looked worried. What about the other treatments, the cancer cures, the life extension therapies? All failing, Dr. Zarebnon said sadly. Without human knowledge, we cannot maintain any of their medical advances. Diseases that we defeated years ago are coming back. The economic problems were even worse. Counselor Zefka, an insect-like creature with large compound eyes, studied the trade reports with growing alarm. His species was famous for their ability to understand complex economic systems. But these numbers made no sense. Impossible, he clicked to his staff. Humans were involved in 78% of all interspecies trade. How did we not notice this? His assistant brought him more data. Sir, it gets worse. Humans did not just buy and sell things. They also translated languages, helped settle disputes, and managed shipping routes. Without them, trade is falling apart. Zefka looked at the star maps showing trade routes. Red marks indicated delays, accidents, and failed negotiations. There were hundreds of red marks, and more appeared every day. On the military side, General Thexmore was discovering his own problems. The Rixian Empire had always been proud of their warships, but they relied on human-designed navigation systems to travel between stars. Sir, reported Captain Yolkes, our fleet is stranded in the Helix sector. The navigation computers have crashed, and we cannot calculate safe jump routes without them. Thexmore slammed his 4 fists on the table. Get our best technicians to fix them. We tried, sir. The human navigation systems use quantum calculations that our computers cannot handle. Without human help, our ships are stuck. Similar reports came from across the Rixian military. Ships were stranded, communication was broken, and supply lines were failing. The mighty Rixian war machine was grinding to a halt. Back in his office, Speaker Veltar was receiving more bad news every hour. Food shipments were spoiling because human-designed preservation systems had failed. Mining operations had stopped because human safety protocols kept the dangerous equipment working. Even the air recycling systems on many worlds were breaking down. But the most disturbing reports came from the long-range scouts. Captain Mordun, a hegemony explorer, stood in Veltar's office with a confused expression on his scaled face. Sir, we checked every human world we could find, all empty. No signs of violence, no signs of struggle, just empty. What do you mean empty? Veltar asked. I mean gone, sir, cities with no people, ships with no crews. Even the pets are gone. It is like every human in the galaxy just vanished into thin air. Captain Morden showed holographic images of human colonies. Streets with no people. Houses with food still on the tables but no families to eat it. Spaceports with landing platforms but no ships. We sent investigative teams to examine the technology they left behind, Mordun continued. But everything important has been removed or destroyed. The machines they left are just empty shells. Veltar stared at the images. Something was very wrong with this picture. Species did not just disappear. They left traces, signs, evidence of where they went. But the humans had vanished more completely than seemed possible. Counselor Zefka entered the office, his insect wings buzzing with agitation. Speaker Veltar, we have an emergency. 3 major species have withdrawn from council trade agreements. They say they cannot trust our ability to maintain basic services. Which species? Veltar asked, though he already dreaded the answer. The Centauri Federation, the Belkan Republic, and the Taurian Alliance. That is 27 worlds and over 4 billion citizens. The situation was getting worse by the day. Without human technology, the galaxy was falling apart. Without human mediation, species were turning against each other. Without human innovation, problems that had been solved for years were becoming crises again. But somewhere in the space between dimensions, Dr. Yun-Nari stood in a hidden human research station, watching it all happen. She looked at the holographic displays showing the galaxy's problems and felt sorry for the other species. Should we help them? Asked her assistant, Commander Ryu Hyunwoo. Not yet, Dr. Yun-Nari replied. They need to understand what they have lost, and we need to finish our preparations. She turned to a large star map that showed the galaxy from a different perspective. Red markers indicated human colonies that the Council had never discovered. Green markers showed hidden human research stations. Blue markers showed something else entirely, massive human construction projects in the dark spaces between stars. How much longer until Project Guardian is complete? She asked. 6 months, maybe less, Hyunwoo replied. The deep space sensors are already detecting the first signs. Dr. Yoon Nari nodded grimly. Good. Because what is coming will make the Q Council's current problems look like minor inconveniences. On the display screens, reports continued to arrive from Council space. More systems failing, more species suffering, more evidence that the galaxy had depended on humans far more than anyone had realized. The humans had left quietly just as they had promised. But their absence was speaking louder than their presence ever had. 6 months had passed since humanity's disappearance and the galaxy was falling apart. Speaker Veltar floated in his emergency command center, watching the reports flood in. What he saw on the screens made his tentacles shake with fear. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic rim, reported Captain Morden, his voice tight with worry. The readings are unlike anything we have ever seen. Veltar looked at the sensor data. Huge objects were moving toward Council space, each one the size of a small moon. They moved in perfect formation, like a fleet of impossibly large ships. How many? Veltar asked. 3 confirmed contacts, sir, but they appear to be growing. Admiral Cresselin swam into the command center, her scaled face grim with news. Sir, we have lost all contact with the Outer Rim colonies. The last message we received was... She played a recording that made everyone in the room fall silent. Screaming voices, the sound of metal being torn apart, and underneath it all, a deep humming noise that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Send the 4th Fleet to investigate, Veltar ordered. We already did, sir, Cresselin replied quietly. 2 days ago. We have not heard from them since. Meanwhile, in the hidden dimension where humanity now lived, Captain Han Jisoo stood on the bridge of a cloaked reconnaissance ship. She watched through advanced sensors as the massive creatures approached Council space. Analysis complete, Captain, reported Dr. Otaman, the ship's science officer. They are definitely devourers. 3 primary entities, but they are creating smaller ones as they consume matter. Captain Han Jisoo had studied the ancient records for years. The devourers were the galaxy's greatest nightmare. Creatures from the space between galaxies that consumed entire civilizations. They had come before, millions of years ago, destroying countless worlds. How long before they reached the first major population centers? She asked. At their current speed, 18 days, Otaman replied. Captain, the Council fleets will not be able to stop them. Their weapons are designed for fighting other species, not this. Han Jisoo watched as one of the devourers approached a small mining world on the galaxy's edge. The creature looked like a massive jellyfish made of dark metal and glowing energy. Tentacles hundreds of miles long reached out and touched the planet's surface. What happened next made even the experienced human captain feel sick. The planet began to dissolve. Oceans, continents, mountains, everything turned to energy that flowed into the creature's body. Within hours, there was nothing left but empty space where a world had existed for billions of years. 3 billion people lived on that world, Otaman said quietly. I know, Han Jisoo replied. Record everything. Command needs to see this. Back in Council space, the reports were getting worse by the hour. The 2nd Fleet had engaged the Devourers near the Helix Nebula. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it was over, the entire fleet was gone, consumed by the creatures. General Thexmore stood in the Council chamber, addressing the emergency session. His forearms gestured wildly as he spoke. These creatures cannot be fought with normal weapons, he reported. Our plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion bombs have no effect. The creatures absorb the energy and use it to grow larger. Counselor Zefka's compound eyes reflected the terror that everyone felt. How is this possible? What are these things? We do not know, Thexmore admitted. Our databases have no record of anything like them. It is as if they come from outside, our galaxy entirely. Speaker Veltar floated in his tank, feeling older than his 300 years. How many worlds have we lost? 7 systems completely consumed, Admiral Cresselin reported. 15 billion people dead. And the creatures are moving faster now, like they are learning from each attack. Panic was spreading throughout Council space. Species that had been part of the galactic community for thousands of years were loading their ships and fleeing toward the galaxy's core. The careful civilization that had taken millennia to build was collapsing in weeks. "We need the humans," Counselor Murgon said suddenly. He was an old diplomat who had worked closely with humanity for decades. "They might know something about these creatures." "The humans are gone," Veltar replied bitterly. "We drove them away, remember?" "Then we find them," Murgon insisted. "Search every system, every planet, every asteroid. There must be some trace of where they went." The search began immediately. Council ships spread out across the galaxy, looking for any sign of human presence. They checked every world humanity had ever lived on, every trade route they had used, every diplomatic contact they had made, but they found nothing. The humans had vanished more completely than seemed possible. It was as if millions of people had simply stopped existing. What the Council did not know was that Captain Han Jisoo was watching their search efforts from her hidden ship. She felt sorry for them, but her orders were clear. Humanity was not ready to reveal itself yet. "Captain," Taman called out, "the Devourers have reached the Tau sector. They are approaching the Belkan homeworld." Han Jisoo watched in horror as 15 billion innocent people faced extinction. The Belkan Republic had been one of humanity's closest allies before the containment doctrine. Now they were about to die, and there was nothing she could do to help them. The largest devourer reached Belka Prime just as the sun was setting on the planet's capital city. Children were playing in parks, families were eating dinner, and people were going about their normal lives. They had no idea that death was approaching from space. The creature's tentacles touched the planet's atmosphere, and the consumption began. Cities dissolved into energy. Oceans boiled away into nothing. Mountains crumbled into streams of light that flowed into the creature's massive body. Within 6 hours, Belka Prime was gone. An entire civilization, with its art, music, literature, and dreams had been erased from existence. "By the stars," Taman whispered. "They are not just killing people. They are erasing entire cultures." Han Jisoo made a decision that would change everything. She activated her ship's communication system and sent a message to Human Command. "This is Captain Han Jisoo reporting from the Galactic Rim," she said. "The Devourers have begun the consumption phase. Council resistance has been completely ineffective. Request permission to initiate contact protocols." The reply came quickly from Admiral Quan Minji, the Supreme Commander of Human Forces. "Permission denied, Captain. Continue observation. Only. The Council must face the full reality of what they are dealing with before we can help them." Han Jisoo wanted to argue, but she understood the strategy. Humanity had spent a century preparing for this moment. They had weapons and tactics that could fight the Devourers, but they needed the Council to be desperate enough to accept human leadership. "Acknowledged, Command," she replied. Continuing observation. But as she watched another world die, Han Jisoo wondered if humanity was making a mistake. How many innocent people would die while they waited for the perfect moment to act? The Devourers continued their advance, growing stronger with each world they consumed. Soon there would be dozens of them, then hundreds. And the Council still had no idea that their only hope for survival was watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to return. 8 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy was dying. Speaker Veltar floated in what remained of the Council chamber on Nexus Prime, watching the evacuation ships leave the planet. Half the galaxy had been consumed by the creatures that came from the dark spaces between stars. The Devourers had grown from 3 entities to over 50. Each one was the size of a moon, and they moved through space like hungry ghosts, consuming everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire solar systems. Nothing could stop them. "Sir," Captain Morden said quietly, "we have received the final evacuation report. Nexus Prime will be empty within 6 hours. Veltar looked at the holographic display showing their beautiful capital world. Soon it would be empty space just like so many other worlds. His species' homeworld had been consumed 3 weeks ago. He watched it happen on the sensors, helpless to do anything. "Has there been any response to our final message?" Veltar asked. "No," Sir, we have broadcast our apology to humanity across every frequency and every communication method we know. There has been no reply. Beltar had recorded the message himself. In it, he took full responsibility for the containment doctrine. He apologized for driving humanity away and begged them to return. He offered them complete control of the council, leadership positions, anything they wanted. But the silence continued. If humanity still existed somewhere, they were not listening. Meanwhile, in the hidden dimension, Dr. Shin Wusung stood in humanity's greatest research facility. The massive station existed between normal space and dimensional void, invisible to the Devourers and the Council alike. Here, humanity's best scientists had been working for over a century. The analysis is complete, Dr. Shin announced to the assembled human leadership. The Devourers follow a pattern that repeats every 2.7 million years. They come from outside our galaxy, consume advanced civilizations, then disappear back into the void. Admiral Quan Minji, a woman who had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, studied the ancient data. How many times has this happened? At least 12 cycles that we can confirm, Dr. Shin replied. Each time galactic civilization reaches a certain level of development, and the Devourers return. They seem to be drawn by something, energy signatures maybe, or the concentration of intelligent life. Ambassador Choi Minho, now old and tired but still sharp, looked at the ruins of civilizations displayed on the screens. And each cycle, one species eventually develops the ability to fight them? Yes, Dr. Shin confirmed. We found evidence on dozens of worlds, ancient weapons, dimensional technology, battle sites. Each time, one species becomes the galaxy's guardians and drives the Devourers away. Until now, it is our turn, said Dr. Bae Youngmin, humanity's expert on Devourer biology. We have developed quantum disruptors that can destabilize their biomechanical structures. Our dimensional shields can protect entire planets, and our Genesis seeds can restore consumed matter. Admiral Quan Minji nodded grimly. Are we ready? The weapons are deployed, the fleets are in position, reported Fleet Admiral Lee Sung-ho. We can begin the counterattack at any time. But Choi Minho held up his hand. Not yet. The Council needs to understand the full scope of what they are facing, and they need to be desperate enough to accept our help without question. Back in normal space, the remaining Council members had gathered on a massive refugee ship, fleeing toward the Galactic core. Representatives from hundreds of species crowded into what had once been a luxury cruise vessel. Now, it was one of the last places where the Galactic government still existed. General Thexmore, his forearms bandaged from a recent battle, stood before the assembly. The situation is hopeless, he announced. We have tried everything. Conventional weapons, experimental technology, even ramming our ships into them. Nothing works. The creatures just absorb the energy and grow stronger. Counselor Zefka, his insect wings damaged and torn, clicked sadly. 18 sectors consumed, over 200 billion people dead. At this rate, the galaxy will be empty within 2 years. But then something impossible happened. Captain Yelnoth, who had been presumed dead after his ship was destroyed in the first Devourer attack, stumbled into the chamber. His uniform was torn and burned, and his eyes held the look of someone who had seen too much. I saw them, he said quietly. During the battle at Helix Station, I saw human ships. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to look at the battered captain. That is impossible, Admiral Kreslin said. The humans are gone. We have searched everywhere. I know what I saw, Yelnoth insisted. My ship was being pulled into one of those creatures. I was certain I was going to die. Then I saw ships that appeared on my sensors for just a moment. Ships using technology I had never seen before. They rescued me and dropped me at the nearest safe world. Human ships? Beltar asked, hope flickering in his voice. They had to be. The technology, the design. It matched human patterns but was far more advanced than anything we had seen before. Dr. Zarabnon, the Altarian healer, leaned forward. Did you see the crews? Did they speak to you? Yelnoth shook his head. I was unconscious most of the time, but when I woke up on that world, there was a message waiting for me. It was in perfect galactic standard, but the phrasing, it sounded human. What did it say? Counselor Maragon demanded. It said, "The galaxy's children are not abandoned. Help comes when it is truly needed." Hope and desperation filled the refugee ship. If humanity still existed, if they were watching, maybe there was still a chance. But where were they? And why had they not revealed themselves yet? The answer was being debated in humanity's hidden command center. Captain Han Jisoo had reported her observations to the Leadership Council, and the discussion had been intense for hours. "We have the power to end this," Dr. Park Ji-won argued. "Every day we wait, billions more die. How is that different from genocide?" "Because if we reveal ourselves too early, the Council will never truly understand what they lost," replied Admiral Kwon Minji. "They need to face the absolute certainty of extinction before they will accept our leadership without question." Dr. Bae Youngmin showed holographic projections of the Devourer's advance. "The creatures have consumed 47% of the galaxy. At their current rate, they will reach the galactic core in 6 weeks. Then we have 6 weeks to make our decision," Choi Minho said firmly. "But I believe the time is almost right. The Council is broken, desperate, and finally understands the cost of their arrogance." Fleet Admiral Lee Sung-ho stepped forward. "Admiral Kwon, the fleets are ready. Operation Guardian can begin immediately." Kwon Minji looked at the assembled leadership of humanity. These were the people who had guided their species through the most difficult period in their history. They had been cast out, insulted, and abandoned. They could have left the galaxy to its fate and found a new home in the vast universe. But they had stayed. They had prepared. They had watched their former neighbors die and suffered with every lost world. Because at their core, humans could not abandon those who needed help, even those who had hurt them. "Prepare the fleets," Kwon Minji ordered. "Tomorrow humanity returns to the galaxy, not as supplicants or equals, but as guardians." The order went out across humanity's hidden empire. Ships that had been built in secret for over a century powered up their engines. Weapons that could destroy the seemingly invincible Devourers were loaded and prepared. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment said goodbye to their families. Captain Han Jisoo, still watching from the galactic rim, saw the first signs of humanity's return. Hundreds of ships began appearing on her sensors, emerging from dimensional space like ghosts becoming real. "This is Fleet Admiral Lee Sung-ho to all Guardian forces," came the transmission. "Operation Guardian is now active. Humanity returns to save the galaxy." The war for the galaxy's survival was about to begin. The refugee ship carrying the last of the Council government was approaching the galactic core when space around them suddenly filled with light. Thousands of ships appeared from nowhere, using technology that made reality bend and twist around them. Speaker Veltar pressed his tentacles against his tank's glass, staring at the impossible sight. The ships were clearly human in design, but they were massive, larger, and more advanced than anything humanity had possessed before their departure. "This is Fleet Admiral Lee Sung-ho of the Human Guardian Fleet," came a voice over the communication system. "Council representatives, prepare to receive our delegation." The largest ship in the human fleet was the size of a small moon. Its hull was covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light of nearby stars. Smaller ships surrounded it like a metal cloud, their weapons pointed toward the Devourers that were approaching from the galactic rim. A transport vessel docked with the refugee ship, and 3 humans walked into the council chamber. The first was an elderly man in a simple military uniform, Fleet Admiral Lee Sung-ho. Behind him came a woman in a white coat covered with scientific instruments, Dr. Bae Youngmin. And finally, an old man that many council members recognized. With shock and shame, "Ambassador Choi Minho," Speaker Veltar whispered. The elderly human looked exactly as he had 8 months ago, except for the new title on his uniform, Guardian General. He walked slowly to the center of the chamber and looked around at the desperate faces of the species that had cast humanity out. "Honored council members," Choi Minho said, his voice calm and strong. We have returned. General Thexmore, his pride, finally broken by months of defeat, fell to his knees. "Forgive us," he said. "We were wrong. We were fools. Please help us save our people." Choi Minho helped the Rixian general stand up. "We did not return for apologies, General. We returned because it is our duty." Dr. Bae Youngman stepped forward and activated a holographic display. "The creatures attacking your worlds are called Devourers. They have attacked this galaxy 12 times before, in cycles spanning millions of years." The display showed ancient ruins, destroyed civilizations, and evidence of previous attacks. The council members stared in amazement and horror. Each time the Devourers return, one species must rise to become the galaxy's guardians, Dr. Bae continued. "It is a responsibility that cannot be shared or refused. This time, that species is humanity." Fleet Admiral Lee Sung-ho added, "We have spent the last century preparing for this war. We have weapons that can destroy the Devourers, shields that can protect entire worlds, and the ability to restore what they have consumed." "You knew this would happen?" Counselor Zefka asked, his compound eyes wide with realization. "We found evidence of the cycles 50 years ago," Choi Minho replied. "We tried to prepare the council, but subtle warnings were not enough. We realized we needed to prepare alone. The containment doctrine," Veltar began, "forced us to accelerate our timeline," Choi Minho confirmed. "We had planned to reveal our preparations gradually. Instead, we had to relocate our entire civilization to dimensional space and complete our work in secret." Outside the refugee ship, the human fleet was already engaging the approaching Devourers. Captain Kim Ji-hoon led the first attack wave, commanding ships that moved through space like living things. "Target the primary entity," he ordered his pilots. "Quantum disruptors, full power." The human weapons fired beams of pure energy that seemed to eat away at the Devourers from the inside. For the first time since the attacks began, the massive creatures showed signs of damage. Their biomechanical hulls cracked and pieces of them dissolved into nothing. "It's working," Kim Ji-hoon's gunner shouted. "The disruptors are breaking down their molecular structure." But the Devourers fought back. Massive tentacles lashed out at the human ships, trying to grab them and drain their energy. The battle was fierce and dangerous, but the humans had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Genesis Seeds launch," commanded Admiral Lee Sung-ho from the flagship. Thousands of small devices shot out from the human ships toward worlds that the Devourers had consumed. Where the seeds landed, matter began to form from nothing. Oceans returned, continents rebuilt, themselves and dead worlds came back to life. Inside the refugee ship, the council members watched the impossible battle with growing hope. For the first time in months, someone was actually winning against the creatures that had seemed unstoppable. "How is this possible?" Admiral Cressilian asked. "Dimensional technology," Dr. Bae Youngman explained. "The Devourers exist partially, outside normal space-time. Our weapons can attack them in dimensions they cannot defend against." The battle lasted for 3 days. More human fleets appeared from hidden bases, surrounding the Devourers from all sides. Species that had fled the galaxy watched from deep space as humanity fought alone against impossible odds. General Thexmore, his spirit renewed by hope, approached Choi Minho. "Let us help you fight. Our ships may not have your weapons, but we can still serve." "Your courage honors you, General," Choi Minho replied. "But your people have suffered enough. This is humanity's burden now." One by one, the Devourers fell to human weapons. The massive creatures that had consumed half the galaxy were broken apart and scattered into harmless energy. The last Devourer, the largest of them all, made a final desperate attack on Nexus Prime. Captain Kim Ji-hoon intercepted it personally, his ship diving directly into the creature's core. His final transmission was heard across the galaxy. "For humanity and for all the innocent people who died. This ends now." The explosion lit up half the galaxy. When the light faded, the last Devourer was gone, and Captain Kim Ji-hoon was a hero remembered by every species in Council space. In the aftermath of victory, the galaxy faced a new reality. The old council was broken beyond repair. Most species were homeless, their worlds consumed. Traditional government had collapsed completely. Choi Min-ho stood before the assembled representatives in a new chamber built on a restored Nexus Prime. "The age of the Galactic Council has ended," he announced. "What comes next must be different." He gestured to a holographic document floating in the air. "We propose the Guardian Compact. Humanity will take responsibility for defending the galaxy against cosmic threats. In return, all species will work together to rebuild what was lost." "You want us to surrender our independence?" asked Councillor Mergon. "We want you to live," Choi Min-ho replied simply. "The universe is full of dangers that individual species cannot face alone. The Devourers will return eventually, and there are other threats we have not told you about yet." Speaker Veltar, humbled by everything that had happened, floated forward. "What guarantee do we have that humanity will not abuse this power?" Choi Min-ho smiled sadly. "The same guarantee we had that you would not cast us out when we helped you, freely. There are no guarantees in life, only trust." The vote was unanimous. Every species agreed to the Guardian Compact. They had seen what happened when the galaxy tried to function without human guidance. They would not make that mistake again. 50 years later, the galaxy thrived under human protection. The Academy of Guardians trained the best minds from every species to watch for cosmic threats. Trade flowed freely between worlds, guided by human wisdom but enriched by the diversity of all species. Captain Lee Daeho's granddaughter, Captain Lee Sujin, commanded a mixed-species crew aboard a patrol ship at the galaxy's edge. Her crew included Rixians, Altarians, Hegemonites, and dozens of other species working together as equals. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported her communications officer, a young Belkan named Tervor, whose homeworld had been restored by Genesis seeds. "Unknown ship design?" Lee Sujin asked. "Confirmed, Captain. It matches no known species in our database." Lee Sujin looked out at the dark spaces between galaxies, where new civilizations might be rising, and new threats might be forming. She thought about her grandfather's stories of the time before the Compact, when species fought among themselves instead of working together. "All hands to stations," she ordered. "Begin first contact protocols. And someone wake up Dr. Kim from the science department. We might need a xenobiologist." As her ship moved toward the unknown contact, Lee Sujin remembered the words carved above the entrance to the Academy of Guardians. Humanity had left quietly, not in defeat, but in preparation. When they returned, it was not as the abandoned, but as the guardians the galaxy never knew it needed. The stars held many mysteries, and humanity would face them all. Not alone, but with the entire galaxy standing behind them. Because sometimes the greatest strength comes not from conquering others, but from protecting them. And in the dark spaces between galaxies, where new civilizations rose and fell like waves on an ocean, the cycle continued. Somewhere out there, young species were taking their first steps into space, not knowing that ancient guardians watched over them with patient, protective eyes. The galaxy was safe. Humanity had made sure of it.